If your child asks for food all the time, I am betting you are about to pull your hair out. How can they be so hungry all the time? In this video, I'm explaining the top reasons kids ask for food constantly. And I'm sharing my tips for breaking the habit of constantly asking for food. I'm Jill Castle, a pediatric dietitian. I've helped thousands of families navigate all of these feeding issues in my private practice and on my nutrition website. I help families improve their children's health by teaching them the essential habits all kids need to grow up healthy and happy. In fact, I've written several books about kids' nutrition. My latest, Kids Thrive at Every Size, helps you navigate tricky situations with food and eating, like when a child asks for food all the time. In this video, I'm going to walk you through several things. You're going to learn the biggest reasons a child asks for food. You're going to know why so many parents like you struggle with their child grazing and constant food requests. I'm going to teach you about food routines and how they can effectively squash constant requests for food. We'll talk about the nutrients in meals and snacks that ensure your child leaves the table satisfied and strategies for tackling this parenting child. So make sure you stick to the end. Let's dig in. While having a child who asks for food all the time is annoying, it can also be a sign of other troubles on the horizon. A study in 2021 from psychologists out of Portugal found that children who grazed all day on food and asked for food all day tended to have anxiety and depression, unhealthy eating habits, poor body image, and parents who were restrictive in their feeding practices. So why does a child ask for food all the time? I've narrowed it down to three main reasons. Number one, real hunger. Number two, boredom. Number three, emotions. So let's kind of walk through and pick those apart a little bit. Real hunger. Why does a child ask for food all the time? They're hungry. And sometimes that happens because the meals and the snacks that they ate weren't satisfying or filling enough. Sometimes children just don't eat enough when they have the opportunity to eat. It has nothing to do with the meal components and everything to do with the child and their appetite, or the fact that they're distracted and they don't sit long enough or pay enough attention to eating to really get a good, wholesome meal in their belly. That second reason, boredom, lots of kids eat out of boredom. They don't know what else to do. They don't have anything to do. So let's go to the pantry and see if we can eat. And that boredom, oftentimes in children, will result in the question, can I have a snack? Or another request for food, or a complaint that they're hungry. I did a video on the signs of real hunger versus what I call head hunger. You can check it out right up here. Boredom and going to the pantry to raid it for food or asking for more food all along the day because a child is bored can lead to a habit. This can turn into a habit of eating when not hungry or eating in front of the TV, because sometimes when kids are bored, they turn to their electronic devices to entertain them. So you can see how eating and some of these other unhealthy habits can get formed. The third reason, emotions. So we know if children are feeling anxious or stressed or a little bit sad, or feeling that they're in a situation where they have a problem with somebody or something and they just want to avoid dealing with it. Some children will turn to food. They will think they're hungry, or they will say they'll just go to food as a coping mechanism for these uncomfortable feelings. And that repetitively can turn into emotional eating. Here's why you might be struggling with the child who asks for food. What my observation is in the families that I've worked with for over 30 years in my career is that setting limits or saying no can feel super uncomfortable. Parents will tell me things like, why should I be creating an issue around food? Is it really that important? It's just easier to say yes than to have this drama and this fight and this power struggle around food. It's tough. I know. I'm a parent too. I've raised 4 kids. It's not easy to say no, and food does seem like the easy yes. But what can happen is this slippery slope. and you find yourself in this position where your kids are asking for food all the time and it drives you absolutely batty. So other parents struggle with this because they know their child asking for food all the time is not healthy and it doesn't produce healthy eating behaviors, but they just don't know what to do instead. So, folks, I'm glad you stayed this far. This is where I'm going to help you. If you like what you're hearing so far, make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave me a comment below. Okay, so here are a few strategies that you can put into place when your child is asking for food all day long. Number one, a food routine. This means getting meals and snacks on a schedule every 3 to 4 hours. Now, this is appropriate. This time frame is appropriate for children from preschool all the way up to high school. So, obviously, younger children need more of like a 2 to 3 hour window, and teenagers can go 4 to 5 hours between meals and snacks. So we're talking about children. Getting meals and snacks on a predictable, consistent schedule of about every 3 to 4 hours. What does this do? A, it makes food available and allow at intervals that align with a child's appetite and their hunger hormones. So that's the basic thing. Most kids' tummies only hold food for up to 2 to 3 hours. Then they get hungry. Their tummy's empty. Hunger hormones fire off. I did a video on this one too. You have to check it out. But it really does explain that there is a rhythm and a cycle with appetite in children. And so when you can line up the timing of meals and snacks to coincide with the hunger hormones and the appetite increase, you're kind of golden, right? So get your food routine into a regular system. Number two, choose food wisely. Now, there are foods that are nutrient rich, that have certain nutrients in them that help kids feel full. And there are other foods that taste delicious and have a lot of calories, but they don't have staying power. It's like the egg versus the donut. The egg is full of protein, and that is going to make a child feel fuller longer than a sugary donut, which is going to be very carbohydrate based and simple sugar based. And those are going to get metabolized quickly and cause those hunger hormones to fire off sooner. So, when we think about food for meals and snacks, we are really thinking about two basic nutrients that are going to help your child feel full longer: protein and fiber. The two of these are the most satiating nutrients you can feed your child. So if you can get a source of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and perhaps at snack time too, your child is going to be more likely to feel full and satisfied and less likely to request or ask for food all throughout the day. Now, we don't need to go crazy with protein because kids are still growing. And if they get a little bit dehydrated and they're getting too much protein, that can be hurtful to their organs, especially their kidneys. So we don't want to overdo it. So everything you're hearing about adults and high protein this and high protein that, ixnay that for the kids. They just need a good source of protein at each meal. So at breakfast, it could be a glass of milk or a container of yogurt or some eggs. At lunchtime, it could be sliced deli turkey. It could be edamame. It could be tofu. At dinner time, it can be a chicken breast. It could be ground beef tacos. It can be beans. So there are lots of protein foods out there, lots of options. Get creative, know your protein foods, and make sure protein shows up at all of those meals. Fiber, another filling nutrient. Fiber literally slows down digestion. And when you drink enough fluids, it bulks up and expands in the tummy and in the digestive system. And that makes your child feel full. So where are you going to find the fiber? You're going to get fruit and vegetables and whole grains, wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, brown rice. These are foods that are full of fiber and are going to help your child feel full. And oh, by the way, foods that have protein and fiber also are packed with lots of other nutrients that are going to be good for your child. 3, set kitchen boundaries. These are the no's that you need to start putting into place throughout the day when your child asks for food. If it's not time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or it's not time for a snack, remember you've set your whole food routine up. If your child's asking for food and it is not time, you need to say no. So, one of the best ways to say no is to say, sorry, the kitchen is closed right now. That is telling your child it's not time to eat right now. They will have to wait until the next meal or snack is available. Now, do you see how this works? If you have your food routine really consistent and predictable and it's happening every 3 to 4 hours, your child doesn't have to wait very long until the next meal or snack. And it allows you to be in control of the kitchen instead of your child. Now, what if your child is really hungry and they come to you and it's not time for a meal or a snack, and you've assessed the situation and you've determined they're not bored, they just didn't have a very good lunch and they really are hungry? What can you do? Here's another great follow-up question. You ask your child, well, would you have an apple? And if your child says, yeah, that sounds great, you know they're really hungry. But if your child says, no, I want the Doritos in the pantry, then you know this is not a hunger situation. This is a boredom situation, or this is a habit situation, or something else, right? We want our kids to eat primarily because they are physically hungry, not because they think they are. Another strategy tip for you: schedule other activities. So when kids have a lot of downtime and they get bored, what do? They say they're hungry. They ask for food. If you can get your child's schedule kind of figured out for the day, and I'm not saying pack in all these extra things just to fill up the schedule, but what I am saying is, do you have a time set for homework? Do you have a time set for nap time? Do you have a time set for reading time? You definitely should have time set for going to bed and waking up. We know there's a lot of research about good sleep hygiene for kids. Do you have time set aside where they can have dedicated time to their screens? Now, the reason this works is because when you start to put things together, oh, they have chores, they've got bedtime, they've got homework, they've got sports, they've got, screen time. There's not a lot of extra time left over for boredom eating. And this works really well. I work on this a lot with the families that I work with in my practice, and we figure out how their schedule can set their child up for success so that they're not asking for food all the time out of boredom. Okay, my last tip or strategy for you has to do with emotional eating and children who are turning to food to cope with their feelings. What do we do about that? We need to talk with our kids about their feelings. We need to make it okay for our kids to come to us and say, I'm sad. I was left out of the invitation to the birthday party. Or I'm angry because my friend said something negative about me. Or I feel happy and I don't know how to really celebrate other than to eat candy. So we need to help our kids understand their emotions, be able to put a label on what they're feeling, and help them work through their emotions. A great question. I ask my kids this all the time. And in fact, when I meet with my parents and the families that I work with, the first thing I ask, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling? Okay, we are bringing the attention to what's going on the inside. This is so important for children because they live in a world that tells them to be a man and suppress your feelings. And so the rest of the world is telling them that they need a safe place to be able to talk about their feelings and to process them. So make sure you're listening to your child. Look into emotion coaching. It's a great way to help your child be able to identify their feelings and to help them work through them. Because if you're seeing your child turn to food to cope, over time, if that's their coping mechanism, that can lead to unhealthy outcomes. Okay, everyone, that's it for today. This is the work I do with families. I help them navigate some of these super tricky things that can be annoying and frustrating. I help them understand their children. I help them optimize nutrition, create really positive feeding interactions. And if this is something that you want to learn more about, check out my books. My books come from the sort of the same angle for every child. What is good nutrition? What is good feeding interactions? And what is going on with this child at this moment in time? When you can get on top of all of that, feeding your child becomes a lot easier. You can go to thenourishchild.com for more resources. I have classes, I've got PDF books, and a ton of free articles there. And if you need somebody like me, I do offer private services. You can find out about those over at jillcastle.com. That's it. I hope you have a lovely week, and I'll see you next time.